Hello everybody from Denmark. I'm Knud Eriksen. We're here for a very interesting seminar over 2 days. It's the 28th, 29th of May 2011. I have here with me a very interesting person. He's a so-called Indologist, which means a specialist in old Indian languages, culture and religion, particularly Sanskrit. He's an internationally recognized expert on Buddhism and has written many scholarly articles and also edited several books on these subjects. He is, through his classical education, able to read Greek and Latin and has studied the Bible, both the Old and New Testament, and in these original languages. In academic circles in Denmark, he is known both as a very knowledgeable and intelligent researcher, but also as a very controversial person, a very politically incorrect person. He has in later years been attacked as a Holocaust denier and an ardent anti-Semite, and has also been attacked for writing articles and books that reviewed Jesus as a historical person. He is the driving force behind this seminar, and he is also a driving force behind what we call the Danish Association for Free Historical Research. The title of this seminar is The Revolt Against Civilization and has to do with the dangers facing Western society. Dr. Lindtner, welcome here, and I'm happy to have you for an interview. Let me start off with asking about your controversial status. It seems to me that you have created controversies in every area you touch that I know of. Were you always like that, even as a kid, or what drives you?
Oh, that's an embarrassing question. I didn't expect that, but sure. Many of the issues that I have been dealing with and that I'm known for, or notorious for, are quite controversial. And, well, which ones do we want to start with?
I'm going to take them all in a row, just, you know.
All right.
You're always like that as a person, I mean.
So let me be polite and then ask you which one do we want to take up first. As you quite correctly say, my name is connected with the question of the background of the New Testament, the sources of the New Testament, Buddhist sources, an issue that I've been dealing with for many years. But my name is also known to the public as in connection with the so-called Holocaust issue. Exactly. And do we want to start with the Holocaust issue?
Well, if we take it chronologically, I seem to remember that you already ran afoul of the University of Copenhagen some years back.
Right.
Some years back, and you were fired, actually.
Yes.
But that was before your current controversial subject. What was that all about?
That is true. That is true. I was I'm born in *49 and enrolled in the university around *68. They had a very turbulent period. As we know, there were many changes from the old, more authoritarian structure of the university. Well, as the rector has put it, in the old days, before '68, the university was a school for the elite. After '68, it has become a mass institution. And that was where I came in. I started with the classics, the hardest study you could take in the humanities, Greek and Latin, and then turned on to the very hardest, namely ancient Sanskrit and Sanskrit philosophy. This was, to a very large extent, on the one hand, a very unexplored area. This was afforded a great challenge to me, and on the other hand, we had a great Danish tradition. Now, after 1968, there was a general tendency, now that we had this mass institution, to get rid of the old classical humanistic disciplines. And this was a deep concern to me. I saw that the professorship in Sanskrit would be demolished, and little by little, the same thing is more or less happening to Greek and Latin studies today. And this really was a matter of great concern to me, and I started criticizing in public, though I meant most of my time I spent learning these languages. It takes 12 years to learn Sanskrit. So there you can see, from '68 on, I had a constant controversy with the university. The quality of the work being done there was being more and more poor. So I would almost say today, it's not. It would be a great thing if radical changes took place.
Right. All right, Dr. Lindtner. As we can all hear, you are able to talk quite a bit about each of these controversial subjects. So if you allow me, I'll try to cut you short a little bit sometimes. So we have a limited time for this. I want to take your interests one by one. We want to get full circle here. I've known you for some years now, and recently you made a series of videos posted on YouTube about the Holocaust issue, which you now saw in a new light. And as you know, I've not been interested in this subject really just from the freedom of speech viewpoint, whereas you have been more deeply into it.
Yeah.
But I think that this new, let's say, this new activity of yours makes it necessary to ask you rather a few questions on this subject. So, until recently, you were in line with the main so-called Holocaust revisionists in the world, and in this new series of videos, you go against your own previous understanding and also the main line of understanding of the revisionists. Actually, you've turned about 180 degrees and say now that it's not really fair to ask for evidence, as I understand it. And you have a long conversation, about 2 hours, about your new understanding. But then, if you now think that the Holocaust, or the final solution, as you distinguish between the two things, the killing of millions of Jews, that it really did happen, is it then fair for organized Jewry also to make a worldwide effort to suppress denials, so as to prevent repetition of such a unique crime against Jews and humanity in general? In other words, to maximize their Holocaust propaganda.
Your question was: is it fair
would it be fair for the Jewish, the organized Jewry, to do as they're doing, maximize their Holocaust propaganda in order to prevent something like that happening again, like the killing of all these Jews, which is their rationale for all this indoctrination and propaganda?
All right. I understand actually several questions in your question there. On the one hand, is it correct to suppress deniers? Actually, I'm not sure that the deniers are being suppressed. It is true that some go to jail and many lose their jobs. But where do I come in? I come in the way that here in Denmark we have a tradition for an open debate. This means that for the last 10 years or more, we have had, perhaps, if not once a year, then every second year, invited a so-called denier to express his point of view, mainly in the spirit of freedom of speech. Some of these were very skilled and clever persons coming up with good arguments. Now, in 2006, to make it short, I was invited by the Iranians to participate in a conference in Tehran, and there a fact-finding committee was established. So I realized now I had to look at things with fresh eyes. Now, I knew what the so-called deniers said. You can't trust the newspapers, you can't trust the media for this issue. And I also knew what the more traditional historians would be saying. So I said to myself, now you try to follow a middle path and see everything with fresh eyes. And I saw, it took some time, then I saw that deniers were really wrong. A denier is a person who says that Hitler didn't intend, Hitler didn't order, Hitler had no budget, he had no plan, and he actually never murdered millions of Jews. I came to see this is absolute nonsensical to be a denier in this sense. It doesn't make sense. Why? Well, when you look at the two main deniers, Professor Butts and Professor Forresson, because these are really the big shots, and you can confine yourself to those two guys. The simple problem with these two is when you go deep enough into their books, which I read with a microscope, you simply see that they ignore evidence. It is like saying, well, we have a car, and then you focus on one wheel. Well, true enough, one wheel is a part of the car, but it's not the entire car. And that is basically the error with the deniers. They simply ignore sources. It's very sad, because some of these guys are quite right. I mean, it's a great tragedy, actually. On the other hand, there are traditional historians, and especially, I would say, if you go into what German historians have been doing already in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, There you will see a very, very good work has been done, often quite ignored by the mass media. So you might say you have three groups: deniers, very competent historians, and then the mass media, often mainly influenced by Hollywood's poor productions. My task then was, as a member of the Tehran committee, to try to find the facts, and the facts are more or less that Hitler intended and ordered and had quite a few million Jews murdered, but mainly by German police, 30 or 40,000 members of the German police. That's roughly the case. There are many things you could criticize the deniers for. For instance, focusing on Auschwitz. Quite a wrong focus, corresponding to what I said before. It's like focusing on one wheel of a car. Auschwitz is just one thing. When David Irving, another famous denier, not an academic, he says the main thing is the battleship Auschwitz. Total nonsense. The thing is, we have to start from the historical beginning, and then Hitler and his intention. Auschwitz is just a part of the story. I think I got nearly everything there.
All right, I think you got everything there. But you used to concentrate a lot on the physical evidence and debunking the fraudulent nature of many of the evidence on the traditional side or the mainstream side. Let me just ask you then, has that disappeared in your view now? Like there was this saying by Dr. Froissart, like no holes, no Holocaust, meaning that there was no entrance to put for the gas to come in, never proved. There was no order, there was no proven order by Hitler. He also said, show me a gas chamber, nobody could do that. Also we had, it was proven that many of the testimonials by the Nazis were actually taken by torture. They were tortured to get them to say what they said.
Yes.
And also many of the Jewish and other people who have been coming forth have been shown to be liars, to be inaccurate at the very least. Is that all forgotten by you now, or is that still important?
Yes, it's a question of source criticism of primary and secondary witnesses. We have all these so-called witnesses that prove, that are known to the public, that we see on TV and so on, that many of them are simply hörensagen. They report what they have heard, not what they have witnessed. So we have to say, what are the good sources? The good sources, the best sources, are little-known sources, namely hundreds of cases that took place in Germany in the 50s and the 60s, where policemen and officers from the SS were brought before German courts, where there's no question of torture. So the deniers have made a great mistake in focusing on bad witnesses and forgetting about the German sources. So it's a question of source criticism.
But isn't it true also that the main stream historians, or the Jewish historians, they have actually brought forth all these witnesses that was later proved to be false? And isn't it also true that there was a Jewish revisionist, Mr. David Cole, who went down to Auschwitz and actually found out that it was true that this whole place had been rebuilt by the Poles and so on. And then he actually recanted later on. Mm-hmm. But that was because he was threatened to his life.
Yes. And
that has happened to other people as well. But are we to see your recantation today as something trying to get in line with the mainline historians? Or what is the exact new proof? Like I would say, Hitler's inflammatory speeches are certainly bad language in our ears today, but maybe one should see it in the setting of those times. Like there was not exactly love between the communists and the Nazis, and also not between the Nazis and the Jews, of course.